Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Mike Guerin. I'm a senior advisor here with TEAMCAIN Solutions, Inc., and I will be your guide for our tour this afternoon of 2019 resolutions, lively and quick processing. In this session, we're going to touch on 3 ways to bring efficiency to your J.D. Edwards processes. So, a couple of housekeeping notes just to start off with. We will be stopping for questions several times. Got 3 main segments here and then the wrap up. So we'll be stopping at the end of each segment. Do submit your questions at any time as we're going through there, as you should be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen a spot to be able to submit questions, so do so. We are recording the session, so feel free when we follow up with you if you want a copy of the link to the recording, or if you want a copy of the presentation, or both. Just let us know. We'll be happy to share that with you. We do have a survey at the end as well, so feel free, if you can, to just quickly respond to the, I think it's 6 or 7 questions on the survey when you exit out. We'd be really appreciative of hearing your feedback and your thoughts on what we presented today. So, just in terms of what we'll be touching on during the session for lighting the spark for efficient J.D. Edwards processes all year around. First off, we're going to be going through data archiving and purging. Second part we're going to look at is invoice automation. And the last part will be publisher forms management. Then we'll get into some final last thoughts. So, the data archiving and purging, the product that we've worked with a number of customers on is called PURGING. So it's an advanced archiving solution for J.D. Edwards. So what's it about? Well, it's a J.D. Edwards purpose-built purging and archiving solution. For an Enterprise One client, it's built within the J.D. Edwards toolset within Enterprise One. So as you'll see with some screenshots that we've got coming up, it looks exactly like Enterprise One. It runs as a module in Enterprise One. So it's got processing options. It's got data selection. Later versions of it include things like the UDOs capabilities that you see now. So Enterprise One pages for access, dashboards, Cafe One, all that sort of stuff. So not only is it in Enterprise One, but as the releases come out, it makes more use of the new capabilities that are there. Like I mentioned, it's Oracle validated integration, so it's blessed and approved by Oracle. It's got its own system reserved code. It installs as an actual ASU. So from a technical perspective, much like adding in a new module, it's done the same way. So it comes pre-configured with modules, and by modules, I mean archive and purge modules, and built-in routines, and built-in standard editing for general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, procurement, sales order, inventory, work orders, and payroll. So the idea here is when you're looking at getting rid of your data, you want to go after your main transactional files first and foremost. I was looking at a client the other day that was coming up to a terabyte of data just on their FO 911 GL master transaction file. Another one we looked at had in the vicinity of 400 million records in their manufacturing messages table. So when you get to the point where you've got that many records out there, you're slowing down performance, you're making backups and other things a lot more difficult. So the whole idea behind the modules here is that they're pre-configured to go after not only the records that make sense to you based upon things like your retention policy, but also in a manner that will sweep out and respect the relationships that are standard in J.D. Edwards in other modules. So a work order make use of parts from an inventory system. The inventory system might have been updated by inbound transactions on a purchase order, which could be tied to a sales order. The sales orders and purchase orders will be tied to receivables and payables. There's a chain and a link and an interdependency among those transactions. And if you said, for example, I want to get rid of anything before January 1st, 2015, you not only need to look at the work order transaction, but also the inventory, the procurement, the sales, the receivables, the payables, and where they all end up, which is the GL. In addition to the standard modules, most JD Edwards clients, about 85% from what we see working with customers, also have tag files. So they're in things like the F55 through the F59 level. So you could have an F55 42119 or an F59 0911. So these capture additional information. PurgeIt can clear those out, the ones that are related to the other main ones as well. We also have customers that might have built up some of their own functionality or be using something like transportation where there is not a pre-configured module. The custom module will be able to handle all of that as well. So from an implementation side for this, the first thing I want to mention is because this is JD Edwards, it's so easy for customers to pick up. So at the lower end, we've got a DIY option. It's a really low cost. It's about a week, a little under a week's worth of consulting time. We do the installation, we do the training, and away you go. The other end is a fully outsourced module or model, and that is typically for customers that need it to be done but don't have the time. Most of the time when we're working with customers, it falls somewhere in between. That also allows us to work with them on workshops, working with the business because it's the business that owns the data, figuring out what your retention policy should be, looking at some of the options and whether you want to use them. For example, being able to keep more data in sales order than you do on the general ledger, or keep more data on the work order than you, or less on the work order than you do for some of the others. So new this year as well, we've started to offer archiving as a service. This is available for both World and Enterprise One, as is the PurgeIt solution in general. So any of the platforms or databases supported by Enterprise One, there's only one, of course, with World, and it's RPG and an AS400 or an iSeries. This really is ideal for customers that are resource constrained, and this is why we came out with it, and also to lessen the burden. So if you want the archive and purging done for you and don't want to invest in software licensing up front, this could work out. There are 4 different levels with this as well that vary from a very low level up to a more sophisticated archiving and purging and custom tables and more frequent processes. So all items that we can talk to you about. To give you an example as to what it looks like within Enterprise One, this is the environmental dashboard, the environment dashboard, the data environment dashboard for PurgeIt within Enterprise One. Top left, we see for what we're looking at, in this case, we're looking at the size of the database as opposed to the number of records, but how much we have in our DV versus our archive environment, or it could be production versus DV, or production versus archive. Middle of the screen, we've got the same information split up by module in JD Edwards. And on the far right, we've got it split up by module and within the other tables. Bottom left, we've got a module summary. And the bottom right, we've got it split by the tables. So an awful lot of information. Customers will often be making use of this once they have the PurgeIt solution to do basically data monitoring. So going in and looking at it. Once you've got this information in here as well, you can start to do things like watch lists on top of it. The next one, when you're doing archiving and purging, you're doing it with batch runs. So just like any other batch job in JD Edwards. This is showing at the top left the summary by the batch run. So we've had some that we've gone in there and done for inventory, for sales, for payroll, for GL. So some of them might have been in proof mode and final mode, and this could be over the course of several months. This is showing the summary of the information, and much like a lot of the other dashboards that you'd have in JD Edwards, it's also showing you related information. So on the right-hand side of that, if we cannot actually archive or purge a record, we keep track of why. So was it outside of the activity date? Was there a problem with the batch? If it's a sales order line, is it the sales order detail is after the GL date for cutoff purposes? So we track all of this and we show you the summary. You can also drill down from any of these. The bottom left, we also have the actual purging that has been done or archiving by the table that it's related to. And in the bottom right, the totals by whether it was good, we were able to do it, whether it was an exception in red, whether it was a document that or a group of transactions that was reversed, that you can do that as well. If you ran it in proof mode only, was it validated but not actually archived? So I wanted to show you this information for a couple of purposes. One, to let you see what you get when you're working with it. Interactive views of the data. Two, it's running in JD Edwards. It's running in Enterprise One. And the biggest thing that we've heard from customers as to why they never get around to an archive and purge project is typically one of a couple of reasons. One, the investment, and that's really more coming down to proving the benefits, and we can help with that. Second one is fear of it, thinking that it's going to be a long, painful, and inappropriate and tough to run process, and it doesn't have to be. And the third is that the tool is too cumbersome to work with. The third one definitely goes away because, again, this is just Enterprise One. We've worked with clients, and they've said it's been so easy to pick it up and internalize this, which is exactly what we're looking for. So what's the value for you? Well, interestingly enough, as we go through this process with clients, and I was mentioning about the error reports that we come up with and the reasons why things can't clear out, we find well over half the time that there are problems with the business processes that end up being found or manifesting in your data. So the process of going through this inevitably ends up that we do the cleanup of the data, and that also leads to business process improvements. In addition to the cleanup and the process improvement because you're getting more efficient. That's coming from your reduced database size. So people don't always necessarily get, working with a client last week as well on this one, we did a data analysis for them, and we looked at it, we said, did you know that you've got 2.4 terabytes of data that you're using, and of that 1.6 terabyte are in alternate environments like PY, like dev, like other ones that you're using, and your larger files like your 911, like your 4111, because they're so large in the other environments too. A couple of implications for that. One, if you've got a terabyte or a 700 gigabyte environment and you're replicating it 4 times, you're chewing up a lot more. If you can get that down to a third that size, better all around. Most alternate environments do not make use of the same or do not have access to the same horsepower that your production does. So if you've got people playing in there, it's going to be slower. And it's storage. It might be cheaper, but it's still not free. One customer was specifically mentioning to us recently that part of the reason is disaster recovery. With the amount of data that they had out there, and it was north of 16 years, the concern was what would happen if they had to actually perform a DR. So, and the normal batch and interactive performance, we've got some measurements, not a lot, but we have some measurements that talk about 20, 30, 40% improvement. And in some cases where it's long-running jobs, could be a sales order update, could be processes around the manufacturing side. It can be a substantial difference, make the difference between whether it can complete within an appropriate time frame or not. Mentioned about the correcting data issues and the ability to have the active data management from the dashboards that we provide. At the end of the day, anecdotally, customers say that you also end up with fewer help desk calls because the system's running better. So if you want to look at some New Year's resolutions around JD Edwards and archiving and purging your data, let's all resolve to improve performance, reduce legal exposure. Might sound silly, but if you got the data and you're subpoenaed or have to get called for a court case, and we had a customer have this happen, then you have to go. It cost them $30,000 to send somebody to Texas for 6 weeks with their information. And their comment was, if we had been doing our normal archive and purges that we are doing now, we would have said, don't have the data, don't need to send anybody. Second last item, a small known fact. I'm an accountant by background, so numbers I kind of like. But if you can save 10 minutes a day of time for performance-wise, and you have 50 staff, that's saving the equivalent of a full-time equivalent of somebody's time. And even at the low end, when you throw in all of the fully loaded benefits and everything, you're probably looking at $30,000, $35,000 for that. We also, use resolution, be ready for your next upgrade. Oracle recommends you clear out your data beforehand, and a consistent message we have had when we surveyed customers of Purge It is one, that they would do an archive and purge tied to an upgrade. That was 90%, and 85% of those said that they would do it before they did their upgrade. So with the archiving as a service, doesn't matter the database size, it's affordable, so there's no upfront costs. The archiving work is actually outsourced, and we have different service levels to accommodate your needs. What this is designed for, again, is addressing the low priority problem that archiving and purging typically is. And because we're doing all the work, we can deliver it pretty quickly. A couple of steps or recommendations for you. This is really common for us to do with customers that are kicking this around. We can do a no-charge data analysis and show you where your opportunities are. We get you to provide us with a table listing with some specific information, dead simple to do. We do the analysis on it, present it back to you and say, you could really benefit from purging GL, payables, inventory, and sales, not so much receivables, not so much payroll, and the custom you could use, and here's why. Oftentimes when we do this, just showing some of the other stuff that's out there that you can get rid of by paying more attention to manual backups that you've been done is worth the investment in time, because there's no dollar investment for getting the analysis done. So got a lot of customer successes and stories that we can share with you as well. We do have a document on the benefits from archiving and purging, including some performance metrics from customers. And because we work with customers a lot on this, we have a document on data retention policies, concepts, and things that you keep in mind, and ways that you can use the capabilities of Purgit to help out with that, i.e. a different retention policy for one area of the business versus another, or for one company or division versus another. So happy to help out with any of that side. So we're at the end of the first segment here, and right on time too, Alana. So any questions in? I'm just going to get us up the AP invoice automation slide to start with.
Yeah, we just have a general question. Is there a rule of thumb for how many years you should be keeping in between purges and archive projects?
That's a great one. It's a little bit of a piece of the string question as well. What we normally find in terms of standard retention policies, most common we see, it's probably about 40% is current +2 in production, and 2 years or 4 years in archive. In terms of how often customers actually perform their archives and purges, far and away most often is annual, although we do see some unusual ones. We have a customer that will do it on a quarterly basis for their inventory because they have an awful lot of inventory movement. And we have another one that will do selective archiving on a weekly basis, believe it or not, Alana. That's because they run manufacturing, and they run, I think it's 11 manufacturing plants. And the nature of manufacturing is it kicks out an awful lot of messages to do with what you need to do to keep your MRP rolling and rolling efficiently. So they generate millions and millions and millions of records per week on this. So their schedule is, and they actually have it set up on the schedule, because you can do that too. They will run their archiving for manufacturing message tables on a weekly basis. So.
Okay. Nice. Okay, well, thank you. That's the only question that's come in so far. So I'll just remind attendees that if you do have any questions throughout the presentation or the next section for SCANMAN, you can enter them on the right-hand side of your screen in the questions panel. So we should be good to carry on then, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, ma'am. All righty. Next up is AP automation. And this is going to be looking at the SCANMAN solution that we work with. So the idea behind this, SCANMAN, first of all, much like Purgit, it's out of the box, it's built within Enterprise One, and it's Oracle validated integration as well. What we're looking at here is a process or a way to streamline and make more efficient your accounts payable process at the start of it. So this is where the documents are getting into Enterprise One, and you're needing to get the approvals done, the matches, etc. So this can be scanned in. It could be emailed in. So you get a supplier email, a supplier send you an email with the invoice in it in PDF format, or it could be coming in an XML format. The documents start out in this process within SCANMAN as log vouchers in JD Edwards. There's a full process for the review of them, for sending them out for approval, for doing the finalization. That could include tweaking them, could involve redistributing on the financial side, all that sort of thing. This is done in the work centers within SCANMAN. Because this is a JD Edwards product, so it's not from Oracle, but because it's Oracle validated integration, this works within JD Edwards. So this is one of the big things when we've talked with customers about improving on the AP side. The fact, like with PURGING, that it's actually within JD Edwards makes a big difference. In addition, because there's an awful lot of process that's going on behind the scenes for getting the document in, having it initially scanned, having it been accepted, having it had updated, made some changes to it, send it out for approval, go on to another person for second level approval, come back, be finalized, be updated, and pushed through. All of those steps, all of those tasks, all of those activities are tracked in an audit trail within SCANMAN. So it's really easy to follow along and see what's happened, by who, when, what time of day, all of that. It also comes with mobile approvals. There's an additional charge for it, but I keep laughing whenever I'm quoting it because it's truly kind of Mickey Mouse-ish. You could likely have a bake sale in a day for a year's worth of it. At the heart of this is when you've got documents coming in, payables documents, you're either going to be one-off type one, so you don't have a purchase order for it. Could be some general service work that was done that was under your limit. Could be a utility bill coming in from a supplier. There's also ones coming in tied to purchase orders if you're a procurement or purchase order driven one. So within JD Edwards, there's all kinds of options for doing voucher match, automated voucher match. All of those are applicable and built in and working within SCANMAN as well. Plus, there are additional ones that have been added in specifically for SCANMAN for things like freight charges coming in, landed costs being added on, and more. There's a tailorable multi-level approval process that you can make use of. It's got a template-free OCR or scanning engine. It also learns as you go along. So as you're scanning the first invoice from a supplier that you might not have built up or set up a template for, it'll learn, and the next time around it'll remember and make it that much smoother. So you could go from 70, 75, 80% accuracy to well north of 90% in a matter of months, 6 months or so. Things like PDF documents in XML, you don't need to scan it, they're electronic. So a PDF document will go through the same kind of process of being reviewed by SCANMAN to pick up the information. An XML document, because it's got tags in it instead, it's a smart document, does not need that. Sorry, I just had to put myself on mute while I coughed for a moment there. The overall process, on the left-hand side, we have the documents coming in. So it could come in via mail, could come in via email, could come in via XML. Those are then stored in either scanned in folders or the actual PDF documents, or translated into CSV files to work with. The first two will go through the OCR scanning process and be swept into SCANMAN. All of these then go through business function or business services that have been set up and built in there. So this is running on your AIS server. From there, it comes into SCANMAN within Enterprise One. So that's where you're doing your verification. That's where the coding is being done. If you're pulling from a purchase order, it's got all the information to be able to recognize the lines, the information, the coding, the taxes, do all of the matching. Based upon the rules that you set up, go through the approval routing for the workflow. You've got all the information there for reporting and also for the audit trail. With that as well, you also have on the right-hand side, the ability with the approval side to be able to go in via tablet, via cell phones, and have approvers review, approve, reject, give reasons, all of that. So a very, very efficient process. This is what the main SCANMAN screen looks like in Enterprise One. So much like when we're looking at something like Purge It, it's an E1 page. So the left-hand side, there's the upload processes. Then we've got the automated matching. We've got the workbench. We've got the supplier ledger inquiry, redistribution of it, approvals, approved invoices, approval setup. Little tab, which you cannot see, but up at the top where it says SCANMAN, and that's what we're looking at, there's also a setup page. So an E1 page for the setup tasks. You can see also some numbers on them. So because this is E1 functionality, it also supports watch lists and alert, analyze, act type functionality. This is a main type screen that you would be working with within SCANMAN. On the right-hand side, you see the actual document image that has been scanned in or picked up from the PDF that was sent. That's also a Cafe One page. So if you're familiar with Cafe One, what you can also do with that is slide it back to the right and have more of the full screen to work with. On the left-hand side is the working part where you've got the details of the voucher on the left-hand side, the lines and distributions down at the bottom. On the right-hand side, right in the middle, is your queue of documents to be working with. And you can so processed, unprocessed, in error, whatever makes sense. And then the rest of the screens we're actually working and seeing the related documents. So number one, it's an E1 screen, just like you're used to working with. Two, a lot of functionality built in there to let you analyze, review, update, and forward on, and also to be able to look at the documents themselves. So what's the value? Customers, JD Edwards users that have multiple locations, this is really helpful for you, not having paper floating around and also getting lost. Distributed approvals. If you're in an environment where you have people working from home or people working on the road, this is great. You don't have to get anything to them. The information can be provided to them electronically to review, note errors, send back, or approve. If you've got high volumes as well, this can be great. You're not losing any documents with it. The voucher process, therefore, becomes much more efficient, much more effective, and traceable. So you know what's going on with the vouchers. When did they hit? When did they get set up? When did they get sent out? Why was it rejected? When was it rejected? By who? What happened after that? When was it finalized? When did it get into JD Edwards as an approved, ready-to-pay voucher? It's embedded within Enterprise One. This is not a solution like many of the ones that are out there where it's outside and you have to deal with the integration sides with it. We have replaced things like Transform AP from Bottom Line Technologies with this solution. It's cost effective. Now, I'll say, I'm a financial person. I've been a business owner. This is not a dirt cheap solution, but in comparison to other automation solutions for this that are out on the market, it is significantly less expensive. So it's also a great way to get you towards hands-off processing. The ultimate goal for any of this is to get to the point where, particularly for procurement-based vouchers, if everything's okay, if there's no issues on the document, if the prices or quantities are right, why should we even have to worry about it? The purchase order was approved and agreed to. If everything else is fine, just push that puppy through. That's the ideal end result. If you've got a process that will sweep the documents in, do the setup, do the matching, and confirm everything, awesome. You're on your way to getting there. So, New Year's resolution with regards to invoice automation, AP automation. Let's stop chasing paper around. Let's stop sending packets of documents out for people for approval. Let's stop having things sit on an IT manager's desk or a mine site's supply manager's site desk and get lost. Let's focus on the AP processes and get some accelerated implementations to get this stuff going. As you start to work with this, some suppliers you can then start to reach out to and say, can you start emailing us the documents rather than printing and sending them to us? Make us more efficient. Even better if there's a way to get it in via XML. Forza, the supplier of the solution, is looking at portal technology for customers. It's not there yet, and we fully expect that it will be handcrafted for each customer to a certain extent. But that's an option too to get even better. A lot of this is about improving the payables and staff time management. Everybody's got to do more with less these days. This is an option to let you have that, not only for accounts payable, because that's what we're talking about here, but also for the other people that you'd send it out to. Make your managers' lives in your buying departments a lot easier. Don't force them to review paper and get the paper back to you. Let them do it electronically. This is 2019 almost. Get information that is fast and get information that is accurate out of these processes to support your payment side. A subtlety that's in there as well is, we don't have this a lot, but we have customers that are offered terms discounts. This largely depends upon the industry that you're in, but there's no way you're going to easily and safely be able to take advantage of 2% off within 10 days, for example, unless you've got an automation like this in place. And 2% off from a large supplier, if you can negotiate terms like that, and having something like this, maybe it's gives you the ability to do that, can substantially increase your payback. So just a few thoughts on that as well. So you're Alana in this, about to slide into the last part here. Any questions from the fine folks yet?
Nothing for SCANMAN right now, so I will just take the opportunity to remind our attendees that if you'd like to view past webinars on any of the solutions that we're talking about today, just let me know and I can always send links, because this is like, we're going through each little section, but we do have full webinars where we show demonstrations of Purgit and SCANMAN. So if you are interested in that, just let us know. And Mike, you should be good to carry on with the BI Publisher Management.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Lana. And that's a really good point. On our website, we've got a bunch of in the can recorded webinars that you can watch at your leisure that have an awful lot. Didn't mention it specifically with this one because it's not like there's a lot that we've got pre-built for the scanning side, but we definitely have some value proposition information on invoice automation. If you did not catch the JD Edwards Day last week, Stoner, which is a customer of that uses SCANMAN, did a presentation, and part of that was about the SCANMAN solution. So not only from ourselves, but also on things like Quest, you can find information on it. So thanks, Alana.
Awesome. No problem.
So next is BI Publisher Packs. So, and that's in regards to BI Publisher Forms Management. Now, I want to start off here with a little bit of a backstory on this, because this BI Publisher Packs are specific to TEAMCAIN. So we were Bottom Line Technologies and CreateForm when it was on its own. So in terms of forms management in the JD Edwards world, at one point, back in a distant galaxy, there was CreateForm, there was Optio, and there was Formscape. A company called Bottom Line Technologies bought CreateForm, and then they bought Optio, and then they bought Formscape. So they bought up all of the solutions that customers in JD Edwards use for forms management. We know this because we were CreateForm's main JD Edwards partner for about 9 years, and we're their partner of the year for 5 years, I believe. So we've got a very long and storied background in output management for JD Edwards, in addition to our chops and our skills and our background in JD Edwards itself. So BI Publisher was coming out. We stayed away from it for a while because we didn't think it was ready for prime time. About three and a half years ago, we thought, no, it's pretty much there now. There are some things that you can still do with Transform, the combined product for Formscape, Optio, and CreateForm. but there's an awful lot that there let's make it worthwhile. So what we did recognize as we started to work with the product and work with customers was, with CreateForm, we had come up with some templates that we could install with customers and tweak. There was nothing like that out there. We'd go to work with a customer for their purchasing forms, their procurement forms, or for their sales order invoices, or their AP checks. There was nothing that was pre-built out there. There were some starter ones that you could get from Oracle that were about as functional and sophisticated as the base reports that you get from JD Edwards. And yeah, I'm not trying to be crass or anything, but base reports in JD Edwards are pretty ugly. And the forms reflected that as well. So what we did is we used our knowledge of JD Edwards, we used our knowledge of CreateForm, we used our knowledge of BI Publisher to come up with pre-built forms for BI Publisher as well. So if you're familiar with BI Publisher, there are two main types. There's enterprise and embedded. Enterprise is what you use if you're creating one-view reports. And basically, if you're doing reports from an interactive perspective. Embedded is what you use for batch runs. So classical output for forms uses the embedded BI Publisher. The nice thing with that is there's no extra licensing required as opposed to enterprise. You create the reports with Microsoft Word and or Excel and or Acrobat, which is a really nice, simple starting point. There is a plugin that you need to get to work with this for Word, and you do have to monitor and be careful of the release levels that you're at. Like with many things, you're going to need to be a bit behind in release levels for Word to make use of this. You create, manage, and process the reports using the Enterprise One toolset. So BI Publisher packs, they're pre-built forms, they're smart logic, and because we came from an output management, forms management, CreateForm, transform background, a lot of the best practices that we would build into doing this for forms are built into it as well. We've got them for both Enterprise One and World. Be totally honest, 95% of our customers have been Enterprise One. We've had a handful, a few World ones. And large reason for that is, by and large, if you're a World customer, you've been using this for a long time, and you probably have the stuff done up already. They're intended to be load and go designs as well. So we can literally get them installed on your system within an hour or so remotely. And if everything's fine, not always the case, there's typically some tweaking, but if everything was fine, go off and run with it. Some general notes on BI Publisher and creating forms and output from it. The design work for doing basic stuff is not too bad. It's when you get into sophistication that it starts to get tougher. And sophistication involves logic and making decisions. So if you want to do things like multiple logos, I remember initially watching a presentation from Oracle, and somebody asked about, well, we have multiple logos. And they said, oh yeah, you can put in an if statement and choose from two. Well, what if you want more? Well, then you probably need to have multiple forms or multiple designs, each with an if statement that you call for separate that sort of stuff. So it's gotten better than that. But creating the sophistication with code under the covers in Microsoft Word can get challenging. You continue on and say, well, I want to do conditional output. Oftentimes as well, conditional output will mean that there could be sections that you want or do not want to appear. Shrinking sections of data, really classical for things like purchase orders and sales orders if you're used to them. You could have a one-line line for a purchase order, and you could have one that takes up half the page because of extended text messaging that's coming in at the line level. All of that you need to accommodate. Auto-sizing images. That could be as simple as something like with your logos. One is rectangular, one is square. You need to allow for the amount of space and find a way to have it fit in. We hear a lot, we're Canadian-based, two official languages here. We hear a lot of the time customers saying, well, we need a French or in English, or maybe a bilingual one. So building that complexity in is where getting from a simple form with some fields on it gets a lot more complicated. General rule of thumb we've seen and customers have told us is it's about 40 hours to do a base design basic form, and up to 2 or 3 weeks if more complex. And in some cases, the 2 or 3 weeks doesn't even get you things like languages. So you also want to incorporate best practices. So just as a matter of course, when we would do designs, if we had a 3-page document, we'd have a full header on the first page, abbreviated in the second and third. We'd have abbreviated footers on the first and second page, and a full footer on the last page with totals and all that. It's just the way to go. It's smart. Why burn up the real estate? We've seen forms that have been created that have 3 or 4 different fonts and font sizes on it. Well, I'm sorry, that's not a professional output. What about the data layout and the flow of the data? There's logical ways for things like this, when you're looking at detail lines, to be related to each other. So when you're actually managing this process in JD Edwards, there's a flow and a setup. So you've got your report design, you got your XML publisher template object, you got your RTFs you're working with, you got your source, your template, output types, versions, delivery options. So at the basic, yeah, it sounds nice because it's Microsoft Word. There's a bit more that you need to do that's tied to it. So again, throwing something out there is one thing, having it functional and having it represent what you want, a little bit more challenging. So the publisher packs that we've got a couple of different levels. One, because we recognize not everybody needs the sophistication. Some clients just need a form that's going to work well, have best practices built into it, and have some pre-configured stuff. So we had, for example, a client that attended one of our webinars on this and said, we've been having problems with our PO form, and the person that was creating it, it's just not working. We asked them, got in a session, got from them an XML sample, online with them, pulled it into our designs, because we can do that, showed them what it would look like, and they said, that's perfect. Can you make these 2 changes? We switched them away from their basic one to one that had more sophistication in it, and had them up and running within a week. They actually had suppliers come up and say, wow, your purchase orders are nice. What did you do? So the gold packages are fully complete designs, includes things like logos, pre-configured totals and page numbers, and the best practice. But they don't have a lot of the sophistication, because some clients don't want that and don't want to pay for it. Platinum level includes all of the more sophisticated features. So multiple languages. Out of the box, we support English, French, and Spanish right now. Multi-logos, totaling options and where they should show up, and should they be on every page. Watermarks, terms and conditions on the back, global messages, portrait or landscape format. They're intelligent, they're effective, they're logical. The other nice thing is when you get some of these, I'll touch on it later, but you've got the form. So there's no maintenance fees for it, and you own the templates. So we've had clients that have said, quite honestly, yeah, we're going to buy maybe 3 of the more sophisticated ones, and we're going to then use those templates to understand what's going on, get a bit of training from you, and we're going to fast track our knowledge and understanding. Awesome. That's great. So what do we have out of the box right now? Well, AP checks, US and Canadian, payroll checks, US and Canadian, direct deposit notices as well, purchase orders, invoices, total compensation statements on the HR payroll side, explanation of payments on the accounts payable side, pay stubs, so the counterpart to the checks, pick and pack slips, EFT notifications, tax forms, although realistically you can get those directly from Oracle each year, work orders, and we do a fair amount of this as well, just custom reports. Let us do the work for you if you're not familiar with it. So what's the value around this? The design work to get a publisher up and running can be pretty straightforward, but when you're looking at forms, outbound documents, communications with employees, customers, suppliers, you want it to be right, you want it to be professional, you want to have some sophistication in there. We've had clients that have said basically eliminating the maintenance that we were paying for Create Form for a year paid for 3/4 of what we wanted to do to switch over. And it's just gravy after that. So, and that's in addition to, well, you don't have a separate server in place that you need to have running and additional software for it. The documentation that we provide allows you to fine tune it yourself if you have the skills. Not everybody has somebody devoted to or that they can devote to BI Publisher. So, and the big thing here is drastically reducing your design time. I mentioned about the one client that we did this for BI Publisher. We had another JD Edwards client that we had actually done the Create Form implementation for years ago. They acquired a company. They were bringing them up on JD Edwards. They did not want to bring them up on Create Form or on the partial migration that they had done. They wanted a clean start with them. So they picked up pretty much every form that we've got that's out there, and we worked with them and got the acquired company up with BI Publisher for all of these forms within a matter of about 2 months. So, and they had all the sophistication they were looking for. So, New Year's resolutions on this side. Let's get forms that are designed and built for JD Edwards and have the smarts that will help us out. Let's dump our old and separate forms output solution. Get with something that's part of the stack that we've got. Let's test out the BIP designs and get some sophistication. So we'll send Mike some of our XML for whatever it is, purchase orders, work orders, AP checks, and get the samples back, see what it looks like out of the box. Let's consolidate the multiple UBE versions that we've got in JD Edwards, either to support Create Form or Formscape or Transform, and bring that back. Because of the logic that we can build into BI Publisher, we have had clients go from 26 versions of AP check output, for example, to 1 version or 2 versions. We also, as part of this, if you're a customer that's got an awful lot of bank accounts, and by that I mean probably more than 6 or so, or that might change pretty quickly, talk to us about the bank file extension that we've created. So it's an extension to the normal F0030 bank file for customers with a lot of different bank accounts. Allows you to control the signatures, the signatory limits, so up to 10,000, 10,000 to 25, over 25,000, the logos, and the creation of the full microline directly in JD Edwards, so that you don't have to do it in the code, in the program, or in something like a Create Form script. So, Alana, that's the tail end on the BI Publisher side. So before we get into the home stretch here, any other questions from anybody?
Let me just check here. Nothing right now. But again, we are recording the session, so a link will be sent out, and then you can always review at your leisure or pass along to your colleagues. And then if you guys have questions after that, you can feel free to send our way. And I'll just quickly plug our post-webinar survey again on your way out. I know we've still got like 10 minutes left, but just we really appreciate your feedback on that, as it does help us with providing you guys with relevant content for our future webinars. Looking to 2019, we want to make sure that you guys are getting the right information. So, and what interests you. So you're good to carry on, Mike.
Awesome, thank you, ma'am. So home stretch here, folks. So final thoughts. We've wrapped this into looking at it from a year-end perspective. We think the ability to think in terms of New Year's resolutions, people oftentimes start them up, and it's out of a sense of hope for what they're going to be able to accomplish in the new year. I know for myself, a New Year's resolution last year, a little bit more involved with it, but it's quitting smoking, and I did. So something that you can do, feel proud of, and get some benefit out of. So from a business perspective, purging. Let's look at the ongoing benefits we can get out of that. Let's save the hardware tied to that, the time, the labor, compliance, other costs, management around it, possibly lost revenue opportunities, improving disaster recovery. Let's make this the year that we finally get this done. So on the accounts payable side, let's look at getting a much more streamlined, effective, efficient accounts payable process. It's one of those areas that we can pretty easily do, and the paybacks are probably pretty substantial. And for our forms, if we don't have really good, really nice, sophisticated ones, if we're spending too much time on tweaking this and we're wishing that it was better, and we want to do e-delivery, we want to do a bunch of other things, and we just haven't yet, let's get it done this year. And if we're running something like Create Farm, it's time. It's time to get with the program, get rid of that, get it all under one stack. So other general things for next year, discuss things with your team. We do, and I in particular have been a big fan of business and technology discussions. So if you're on the IT side, talk to your team. If you're on the business side, talk to your team. And more importantly, business and technology, talk together. What's your plan? Where's the business going? How can the business technology group support the business? What can the business group do to help the technology group understand where some of the pain points are? What do your customers want? Do you have an ERP roadmap that says this is where we're going and how we're going to get there? If not, maybe it's time. Do your little part on it. Alana mentioned webinars. We got a ton of them on our site. We've got a lot of other documentation and details there. We're not, the term I keep using is cheesy salespeople. So our intention is to be helpful. And if we're helpful and we provide value to you and give you good ideas like we try and do with these webinars, hopefully you'll want to do business with us. So feel free to just reach out to us, even if it's just for questions. We're not always looking to sell. We are always looking to help our customers. So let us know what we can do. A little bit on TEAMCAIN. We started the year as TEAMCAIN. We're finishing the year as TEAMCAIN Solutions Inc. Because partway through the year, June 1st, we became an ISP3 company. So ISP3 is an Oracle Platinum partner. They were another partner on the JD Edwards space, bigger one than us, actually run by a couple of really nice folks that I have known for over 2 decades. So back to my JD Edwards days when we all worked directly for JD Edwards. So we are now an ISP3 company. That has given us some additional skills and heft as well. So in addition to all the stuff that TEAMCAIN has done for over 2 decades on the JD Edwards side, we also have the extensions from ISP3, which in addition to the cores that we have, gave us huge depth on the CNC side, on managed services, on cloud, on development, and on payroll HR as well. ISP3 is actually running their business, and we will as of January 1st, in Oracle's public cloud. So not only can we help you with doing it, we also know from experience because we run our business that way. ISP3 is also a NetSuite partner. So there's 4 pillars for Oracle on the ERP side. NetSuite is the 4th one, and it's a full cloud-based solution. So if you have any interest in that for your organization or division or colleague, let us know. TEAMCAIN has always been about extending solutions for our customers beyond what you get with JD Edwards. So we talk about 3 components here. That's the BI Publisher Packs, PurgeIt for archiving and purging, and SCANMAN for AP automation. The company that provides SCANMAN to us, Forza, also a JD Edwards partner, also provides a package build automation solution called Pacman and a self-serve password reset product called, conveniently, SSPR. We do have more information on our website for those. And of course, if you're interested, be happy to talk about them. And the final one is RF Smart. If you are running any kind of a warehouse or a manufacturing operation and you do not have RF technology in place, I gotta wonder why. The payback for this is immense. So RF Smart has been a partner in the JD Edwards space, purpose-built for JD Edwards for about 2 decades now, and we've been a partner all along. So happy to answer any questions on that and help out. So bada boom. Do you have your whistles to blow for this, Alana, and all that? Or anyway, thanks for joining us today.
I have handfuls of confetti.
Throwing it in the air as we speak, right? Yeah. Awesome. Make sure to vacuum later, right?
Yes.
So if we're not talking to you all between now and the end of the year, best wishes to everybody. Hope it's a roaringly successful year coming up. If you want to talk more about any of these things, I would love to do so. I love helping customers out. Been doing it in the J.D. Edwards space for over 35 years. So want to do it for a few more years still. So if it's now before Christmas, if it's into the new year, whatever works for you, just let me know. I'd love to talk about this stuff and how it can help out. So, and again, we deal from the perspective of educating and helping people out, and business can come from there if it's right. So let us see what we can do for you. Email is up there. Remember the survey on your way out. Look for some follow-up from us, seeing if there's anything we can do for you. And have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.